Hi, this is Rob Packard from Medical Device Academy, and today's live streaming video is about what is the difference between the document change control process and the design change control process, and when do you use which one? So, one of our clients, and not just one, multiple clients have made this error in the past. They learn the document change control process first, and they're implementing a brand new quality system, but they've never actually made a device and controlled design changes because this is their first time bringing a medical device to market. So they spend all this time learning document control, reviewing documents, approving documents, and it seems intuitive that, oh, I'm just going to use this same thing to approve all these other things later on as we make changes. But when it involves a design change or a modification to your device, your manufacturing process, or even a change in the supplier, such as changing a contract manufacturer, changing a sterilization provider, changing a contract packager, those are things that require more control so you don't use the same form. Now, in theory, you could use the more complicated form for both, but that makes your document change control process not very efficient. Document changes, you want to encourage those to happen frequently. You want people to very easily be able to update, correct, and improve their procedures and work instructions and forms. So you want a very simple form for that. The most complicated part of that process is when you do a brand new rewrite of a procedure or you create your first procedure. You might need to do a gap analysis against a standard to make sure all the requirements are met. But once you've already got a procedure in place that meets all the requirements, the changes are small, so the process should be very efficient and very quick. When you're doing a design change, you don't have that luxury. When you're making a design change, even if it's a labeling change, you could potentially have to not only update your documents that document how the label should be formatted and what content should be in the label, but you also need to update your technical file, your device master record or DMR. You also might need to update your UDI. You might need to update your inventory that you have. You might need to get approval from a regulator such as Health Canada, a notified body, or the FDA. You might also, if it's the instruction for use, you might need to actually do a summative usability study to verify that the changes to your instruction for use didn't cause some sort of problem with people understanding what you're talking about and how to use your device. So there's even just something as simple as changing a diagram in your instruction for use. You think it's being more clear, but if it's instructions and it's a critical part of the instructions on a high risk device, it might be absolutely required by law for you to go out there and redo this testing and resubmit to the FDA because it could have an impact on the performance of that device and how well people use it. For medium risk devices, it might not be required to get approval from the FDA, but you still probably internally would say this has a risk. We should repeat some of that testing or at least do some formative testing. And what about our risk management documents? We have risks that are identified for use-related risk analysis. Why don't we update those when we're making this change? Because that is impacted by the instruction for use. So there's all kinds of things that have to be updated just because you made a small change in one document that's a labeling document. And that document has cross-references in many other places. So in your design change notification, or CN is what we call it, the change notice, you're going to enter a log just like you would for document changes, and you're going to fill out this form, the change notice. That's very similar to the document change notice, but on there you're going to list other supporting documents that also need to be updated and attach them, such as your risk management file might need to be updated, your labeling might need to be updated, your usability testing might need to be updated. Your DMR certainly will need to be updated. Your technical file index needs to be updated. All these things are going to have to change in addition to the label itself. And that's just a labeling change, a very simple one. If you pick something more complicated, it might seem really straightforward, no big deal. Oh, we're just going to switch from this sterilizer to a different sterilizer. They're going to use the same process conditions. Everything's going to be the same. So, if it's all the same, then we don't have to notify a notified body, right? Not the case, because a lot of high risk devices will actually list that sterilization provider on the certificate itself, the CE certificate. If you don't have a high risk device, you have a moderate risk device, let's say a class 2A device or a class 2 in the US, you're still going to have your technical documentation is going to list the critical suppliers. That includes a sterilization vendor, and you're going to need to provide copies of their ISO certification to your notified body. If you're working with the FDA and this is a 510K cleared product, if it's the exact same sterilization process, you're not changing the method of sterilization, and it's a class 2 device and you already have 510K clearance, then it could be a letter to file. However, you still need to update your registration listing, and you need to have that company list your products with them as the contract sterilizer. So they have to have an update to their registration, even though you may not have an update to your registration. So there are always things that need to be updated when you make any kind of a device modification, you change your manufacturing process, or you change something that's related to that design documentation somewhere. Even a change in a supplier could trigger changes, even though it's this all to the same specifications, all the same process. You still might have some more elaborate modifications that have to be made to documentation. So there's big differences. In how do you know which one to use when? Well, the key here is this just affecting your quality system procedures, your quality manual, and it isn't specific to any one product? Or is this something that's specific to a product and needs to be listed in your device master record, DMR, or your technical file index? So that's why our company uses the DMR tech file index. It's one and the same document. We use the same format and template for both of those, because there's no specific requirement for the format and content of a DMR. So you might as well use the format and content that's required for a technical file. And Health Canada doesn't have any problems with you using the European template and format for a technical file. They just want in a submission for you to map how your requirements map to the GHTF requirements that Health Canada has their license application requirements specified. So that sort of gives you an idea of, is this a change to our calibration procedure, or is this a change to the device that we're using to measure something that needs to be calibrated? So if it's a measuring process, so this is the device that we're using to measure this, that's a change in your inspection instructions. It's specific to that product. It's going to be in your work instructions. It's going to be in your final inspection report. If it's a high-risk device, it's even going to be listed as something that needs a supplement for a PMA. But if it's just the procedure itself for calibration in general and isn't specific to any one product, then it's just going to be an update to that calibration procedure, and you can use document control for it. Now, if you make a change to a document, one of those quality system procedures, there's training that's required, and you're going to list who needs to be trained on that. If you make a change to a design process or a design of a device, you're going to have even more training is required, and it's going to be training of different types in different locations. For example, we'll take the calibration example. If you're changing the way you're measuring something, let's say before you were using calipers, it wasn't giving you an accurate enough measurement. Now you want to use a vision system to measure this part. That's a change in your work instruction on how you're going to measure it. You're going to need to train people on the new vision system. You're going to need to calibrate that system. You probably want to validate the measurement process. So maybe a gauge R&R study should be documented somewhere. And if it's a high-risk device, you're going to have to file a PMA supplement, or if it's a notified body with a class 3, you're going to have to notify them of that change in the measurement process. If it's a moderate risk device, you just need to show something like a gauge R&R. Oh, we made this modification, this measurement method, but we validated the measurement method and we updated our documentation. For the FDA, a letter to file would be certainly adequate. For Health Canada, probably wouldn't be worthy of a supplement or any kind of a device license amendment. But if you're talking about a notified body, it depends. And so each notified body, you would think that would be doing it the exact same way, but what we've experienced is they don't. So in general, my advice to companies is whenever you make any update to your technical file index, even if it's something you know you don't need to notify them of, you've updated your technical file index. So therefore, send them a copy of your updated technical file index showing red lines saying, we believe this is something that doesn't require notification of this change because it's just a measurement method. However, we're using it for final inspection. It's listed in our technical file index. So here's a copy of our updated technical file index. If there are any documents you want to review, approve, or sample, please let us know. So this way you've let them know, and let them know while you're doing the validation or just after you finish the validation, but before you start CE marking product and shipping it that way. That's really important. And it's not because, they'll shut you down and eliminate your or cancel or suspend your CE certificate. What's likely to happen is you're going to get a nonconformity, probably a minor one, but it could be a major one, for not adequately notifying your notified body of a significant change. They may consider it more significant than you do. Now, why would that be a major instead of a minor nonconformity? It could be something you've done before, and that would be escalating it. Whenever it's a contract manufacturer that's a significant subcontractor, a contract sterilizer, that's somebody that they are going to have to be doing unannounced audits of. They're going to have to make sure that they have listed them as a subcontractor and they've verified that the certificates for the quality system for that company are adequate, or they're actually going to have to audit that supplier. So those would be reasons why you need to notify them in advance. So that's the difference between, we're just measuring this at final inspection. We change from calipers to a vision system versus a contract manufacturer or a contract sterilizer. Those are a little bit different types of changes. But if you do this repeatedly and you don't notify the notified body, then they can escalate it to a major. So those are some examples of types of things you need to look at. Another thing that you might be looking at is post-market surveillance activities. So post-market surveillance activities are getting a lot more emphasis now. The Europeans created a whole new section in your technical file. Annex 3 is supposed to be all about post-market surveillance in your tech file. And then the Canadians recently made new regulations requiring post-market surveillance summary reports to be submitted. A lot of times when we're making these design changes, they're improvements, but they might be associated with a non-conforming product in the manufacturing process that didn't get to the field, or it might be a recall or corrective action related to customer complaints. And in those cases, you might actually want to be gathering some post-market surveillance data to verify that the change that you made either to the manufacturing process or the supplier or the actual design of the device actually fixed the problem. So you might have a complaint, determine it doesn't require a recall, but it is worthy of a CAPA. You implement the CAPA, you make the design change, you validate it. Now you also should be doing post-market surveillance, and that's the effectiveness check for the CAPA. Now, a better way would be you would have a quantitative validation report that would have acceptance criteria in there that are validated and quantitative. And then you could use that as your acceptance criteria, but not every single change that you make can be validated quantitatively with quantitative acceptance criteria. So a labeling change, that might be something that's much harder for, you're trying to make it more clear without some sort of a summative study that's quantitative. It might be really hard to show quantitatively that this CAPA was effective. So in those cases, you might decide, this is really something I need to do post-market surveillance of to make sure the CAPA was effective. Whereas other cases, you might say, no, this is something I can validate before it even goes to market in the manufacturing process. This new measurement method is much more accurate, more precise, shows better accuracy and precision, and therefore I don't need to look at going out there and doing any post-market surveillance for this type of change. So it depends on what your change is and how you're validating it determines whether you need post-market surveillance done as well. So things that I see companies forget to do: notifying the regulators is one, updating their technical file, updating their DMR. And if you combine both the DMR and tech file index together, then you update once instead of twice. They don't update their post-market surveillance. They don't update their risk management documents, and that includes manufacturing process FMEAs. They don't update their procedures. They don't update their training. They don't update their calibration. They don't update their maintenance and preventive maintenance plans. All those things get covered. So if you think about it like any process change, if we made a manufacturing change, why would we do less verification than if we make a document change? If I change my calibration procedure because I'm having problems with people not calibrating things correctly, and I clarify the procedure, I would do training, but then I might also do a re-audit of the calibration process to make sure people are using the new procedure properly. So that's effectiveness of that cap. I changed the procedures, and then I did an audit of the procedure to make sure people are using the new procedure and it's working. Well, if I make a change in the manufacturing process, why wouldn't I re-audit the manufacturing process? And why wouldn't I use the process approach for that? Because it's a manufacturing process. Look at what are the new inputs to the process? What are the new outputs to the process? Is there any monitoring and measuring of quantitative things for that process change? Did I update my calibration records, my validation records, IQ, OQ, PQ, preventive maintenance plans? Do I need new safety procedures? Do I need new training for operators? All those things should be covered and would be covered in a thorough process approach to auditing. So just like we do training records and audits of the process after we make a change in document control, you should also be thinking about audits for effectiveness of your design changes and manufacturing process changes too. So that's another approach you can take to make sure you're doing this right. But I see companies make change after change after change, and then they never go back and audit the records to make sure they were updated properly. And having an independent auditor, they could even do it remotely, look at those records might really help you out and avoid this situation. I hope I answered everybody's questions about when to use the document control process and when to use the change control process for design changes. But if you have any more questions, don't hesitate to look below for the link on how to contact me and schedule a meeting. You might also be interested in the live webinar that we're going to conduct on January 20th, 2022 at 11 a.m. Eastern time, where we're actually going to cover this in much more detail. We're actually going to show you how to fill in our change control form, Form 12, and fill in the log. And we're also going to talk about significant change notification for notified bodies, Health Canada, and letters to file for the FDA. And if you register for the live webinar before February 3rd, if it's after the 20th, you'll get a recording, but you can get a discount up until February 3rd, and then the price will go up to our normal $129 a month. For the webinar. So I hope that answers everybody's question. Thank you for attending live. Next Friday, we're going to be doing another live video at 12:30 on YouTube. So hope to see you then, and let me know if you have any suggestions for a new topic. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.